broadcast network, Afterbuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. Afterbuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing after-shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
If you get in trouble.
That's right. The sound of that can only mean one thing. Another after show here on Afterbuzz TV for the greatest show on television called Bar Rescue, hosted by our dear friend John Taffer. I am here alongside Kevin Undergaro.
So happy to be here. So bummed I wasn't here last week. I was shooting something, and unfortunately for E, but last week to me was up in the top 3, and this is a wonderful episode as well. I still have yet to see my bad Bar Rescue. Like
So
even
let me ask
Star
you
Trek, there's some bad episodes along the way in that 3-year run. I'm how many years into this I haven't seen a bad Bar Rescue?
You and John said last week could have been your favorite episode. John did say that. You had that sentiment. I thought it was a great episode, but why, for you, the best episode?
It fired on all cylinders because every show, as we know, we mentioned pirates. Okay, so a minute 43, and I mentioned pirates. Okay, so every single show.
Guest Bar Rescue for Beach Rats mentioned pirates, and it was the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, it was amazing. But I mention it so often because it's such amazing television.
Yeah.
You know, you get John, so you're learning about what he does. So you're learning about the craft, which I love. You're learning business in the Pirates episode, I'm saying. Mm-hmm. But then you're being so highly entertained by a lady who wants to play pirate, and you're also learning about how, in a very extreme way, how people fail in business and why they fail in business. And at the Wonder Bar, we were getting it all over again, but we had a son who was relatively sane, who was smart enough to go along. So that's why it might have been as good, if maybe even better, than Pirates, because we ended up going all the way. He outwilled her. He made a better bar. Did you guys discuss follow-up?
We did a little bit. What keeps happening for me, the DVR keeps cutting off, so I never see the last bit of the episode.
But I mean follow-up in terms of just doing research online.
Dorinda did.
So she changed the name back.
They changed, and that's what we talked about.
And then Trash John, and I think she was just like, listen, she was just happy she got a purifying system. So in the end, it was the same as the lady from Pirates who was like, no, he didn't do anything. Big
Except
deal.
The difference was the contract. So what we had discussed, we guessed.
Oh, she just, that's just some hippie chick. She just ripped up. I mean, like.
Yeah, but there's got to be. That's what I'm asking about the consequences.
Oh, ask me.
So my theory was that it was like, okay, you change the name, then, $100,000, if that's, let's say that's the cost of this new bar, now that's yours to pay.
Yeah, and I think that the show and John and the spirit of the show is probably not going to enforce that, and I hate even throwing that out there because future bar owners that are put in that predicament, I want them to listen to John, but I bet you they're not going to be bothered. And by the way, try getting water out of a rock. Try getting money out of that lady. You know what I mean? You're gonna spend so much time to go into that state to create a lawsuit against her. She's gonna go through all the way to the lawsuit and be like, "Yeah, I was wrong. So what?" And they're gonna say, "Okay, well then we're gonna put a lien against the thing," and she's gonna say, "Fine," because whenever she goes bankrupt, that's one of those. She's a 6-year-old, no responsibilities. I mean. Again, I don't want to make this episode about that, but it blew me away, her drawing pictures and this. It was just it's one of the reasons why people are down on the hippies. I mean, the hippie movement had, a lot of great things about it, and a lot of great things happened because of the hippie movement. However, that was the bad side, which to me was narcissism, brattiness, immaturity, lack of responsibility. Mm-hmm. So you had this terrible performer in a a bar that was just in the wrong place. And John was, I think, great enough to say, hey, if you want to go out to a suburb and do this, fine. But you know Chicago?
$18,000 a month rent.
And what John did with it, he made it the perfect music bar in Chicago. It was even a better renovation than the Pirate one. It was even a bit because the show's further along or whatever. But to me, it was one of the best renovations I've seen. I could totally see the most successful bar in that neighborhood being that bar. And what made this better for me was that we had a son who was sane enough to say, Mom, hold it together, hold it together, hold it together, get what you want. And as I'm watching it with my girlfriend's like, oh, she's just yesing him to death to get what you want. She had a genuine moment at the end because it was in the moment after the 4 days. But my girlfriend was like, oh no, as soon as he's out the door. Because just an effing brat. And just, again, someone I don't like and never would want to do business with. But highly entertained and not worthy of John. The son was, and so whatever. So, but again, when I hear that she's just grateful that they got a water filtration system, it's like, really?
Yeah.
Anyway, so don't get me all like
all right,
up.
So that's enough about that.
But
episode.
it was amazing.
Absolutely, and this one,
And lastly, compliments to the producers for iWorks and Three Ball or whoever, because with this show, you're going to succeed because John's such a rock star talent. He's such a rock star at what he does. He has all the connections to these amazing renovations. All they literally have to do on that show is cast it. And they've been hitting it out of the park. So it was great casting. So if I'm them, it's just all you have to do is just cast. Just get us the right morons and idiots and just entertaining people. That's it. And who knows if it's even them? Maybe they deal with a casting person. I don't know. But all right, ask away. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
No worries. Well, so Beach Rats, last night's episode, I thought it was great. We're down in Hollywood, Florida, and I liked it for a number of reasons. They were successful guys overall that really just lost their way, through this, like you had Hurricane Sandy and that unfortunate incident, and this I would kind of put up there. Mm-hmm. It was really tough.
Well, they overcame the hurricanes, and then it was the death of the son.
Well, I was talking about the episode specifically to Hurricane Sandy.
Oh, sorry.
But
yes.
They that's the thing. Like, they had a winning mentality. Until the loss of the son.
And the loss of the son was so devastating because the alpha in their relationship, and I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. Jamie. He was the father, so he was the most affected, and so with that, everything fell apart. He just became, as they were saying, short and angry and controlling and just.
And all they had was each other. As it progressed, it was really interesting to learn. Both of them got divorced over this job.
So let's take it in order, Phil, because to me, I cannot get one particular scene out of my head, and I'm going to go to it quickly if we just.
Sure. So
no. I'm not. So let's go in order because I'm just going to go to that scene. So let's just take it step by step.
Okay. So we're at the Recon. It's kind of on the boardwalk. It's corner location, which is prime real estate. Because you can see
amazing
from both sides.
Corner on the beach. With the exception of probably the rent being astronomical, it's almost a layup.
Yeah, and
empty, and another bar rescue. I think first where John does recon.
Yeah, it's
amazing.
Like, let's go in and Kali, she. I liked her. I liked her spirit, and she had that tough mentality.
We got her there.
And she's a bartender, and she's like, "Oh, I don't have a pen. Anybody got not a pen, the pad."
So just a side note, everybody, listen. Waitresses and bartenders are actually great people to date, but the greatest to date is a waitress. They work hard. They serve you. They're much more humble. You get to a bartender.
They're kind of like a rock star.
Exactly. And they're protected behind the bar. They have the power to throw people out and the power to shut you off. And, you can get that same server mentality but you can also get ones that have a lot of attitude. And so I saw that attitude in her, like the whole,
Here's what I never understood. And partly I understand it's because they're failures. But especially in this moment when John Taffer comes in your bar and he sits down, I would imagine, oh, holy crap, it's John Taffer. Go serve him. Like, if you're going to make anyone's experience good, make his good.
Well, the owners they all were like being sheepish and kind of whispering. They were, but she was, that's just.
But I'd go up to him and be like, hey, John Taffer, correct? Hi, welcome to the bar.
But when you're the bartender and also you have what I've always said, PGS, which is pretty girl syndrome. And when you have those things working for you, you tend to be pretty arrogant or apathetic.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's got to start with, the heads of, it should have been John or Jamie to say that, like, hey, make this guy welcome. To me, I never even understood, like, if you're going to be on a bar rescue, I never understood why you wouldn't just clean up.
Well, when you're
going to get yelled at.
Well, when he was having his semi-confrontation with her, two things came to mind. Either one, I have nothing to prove this. This is just my speculation. But they were either involved romantically, or he had a crush on her, and she kind of was the princess of the place who always got her way. It's like when you have the super hot girl that works in your business, and she just kind of gets away with murder, and that's what it seemed like to me. So where they're not incentivized to grab her and say, "Listen, you got to go in there. You got to bump." So
yeah. And he certainly didn't have answers in terms of the drinks.
No.
Nobody knew what that was.
No. By the way, bartenders, aspiring bartenders out there that are listening to our show, I wasn't, I bartended for 2 years, and it was because I was in desperate need of money. It was one of 3 jobs I had at a time to pay off a major debt. And I spent the money on a bartending school, and I had a laminated cheat sheet that I kept under the cash register. And today, you'd probably use your phone, but I still think a cheat sheet would be faster because you could pull it out and flip it. Just care.
It doesn't get wet.
Yeah, it's just caring about your job, and because there would be people come in and say, "I want a Harvey Wallbanger," or just out of nowhere, make me a grasshopper. Like what? So I'd go to my thing. Okay, flip the sheet. Boom, grasshopper. Okay, milk, creme de menthe, whatever. So I don't know. I just think when you care. You
put in that extra effort.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't fault them. It makes it extremely hard to care when they just don't care. And we've had this before, but we
have it almost every week, Phil. Where the head of the snake doesn't care, and then no one else does.
No, what I'm saying is the impromptu stress test. Because we've had it before.
Yes.
So this time around we get around 60 people.
That was awesome, though. It went from empty bar to 60 people shuffling in. Great.
I enjoyed that. And the food, the barbecue with oysters and all that. Like,
oh my God, I wanted to vomit.
First off, oysters have
Steven's laughing in the booth.
Oysters have to be done right, because to me, just in general, seafood, like if it's not done well, it just looks gross and
I want to throw up just even thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly. So and the fact that this is kind of when Chef Nick Liberato, who we love, he's looking at it. He comments on this later, but the reason why he's commenting on it later is when he got his, it had the dirt in it. Oh. That's just gross.
Yeah.
Who wants to eat, like, it's a seafood fish. Like, of course it's going to...
Did they go at, when they got into it with the chef, it was right then, wasn't it?
It was the first night.
It wasn't for Recon.
No, it was the first night that he walked out.
And again... I have a hard time because as I was saying earlier, the head of the fish, what is it, the old saying, the fish stinks from the head down. So if the head stinks, the rest of the fish stinks. And we see it every week with these owners who don't push their employees to say, know your drinks, have backup drinks, or listen, guys, you got to clean the bar after the shift. And kitchen, listen, you got to come in. I'll pay you an hour early and an hour after, but or we'll do one full day of cleaning that I'm going to pay you for, but then that's it. You're going to get 1 hour before, 1 hour after, whatever the case is. And they don't do it. But at the same time, it's hard for me, and my girlfriend was the same way with her service jobs. Like, I had it in me to do that anyway. I mean, you guys, Steven and Phil, you guys are younger, and you were blessed to have to avoid that kind of work and to work in the TV industry out of college. But, well, Steven, no. Steven, you're Chili's. And I'll tell you, Steven, you waited on my girlfriend and I so well that I hired
Well,
you
you
over.
know what?
No, but
Before
I hired.
Steven answers,
Yeah,
I take
okay.
offense to that. I used to go and we did a
you-
gardening show, and I'd have to show up because I'd have to show up and feed the chickens. There was like three.
Okay,
there
but
was
did you
all
go?
these-
But also
I had
he
to
was.
water.
But he was a. I know who you work for. He's a director, and he was
Yep.
a hard on.
He
He was a Harry hard on. But so I'm saying, would you have the where? I know I had the wherewithal on my own to say this is a mess. It has to be cleaned. I know it's. I'm gonna ask you, Stephen, what you were like. But I also know you were so great as a waiter that we literally hired Stephen out of Chili's a few years ago and said, I said, come work for me. But Stephen was that. I think, and the management at that particular Chili's that we've been going to for like 10 years is terrible. It's literally one of the worst Chili's that I've ever been to. So it had to have been you. But weigh in, please.
What's the question exactly?
The question is, did you have it in you? We see these people time and time every week working in these dirty bars and dirty kitchens, and they blame the bosses who don't push them. And the boss, and rightfully so to a degree, the bosses don't push them. But I'm saying I had it within me. My girlfriend had it within her to do that kind of cleaning on our own instinctively. What do you say to that? And how would you react in those situations?
I kind of have a problem with authority. So when I was working in the restaurant, I just cared about the people I had to care about, which was my section and anyone who asked me to do something for them. So my managers didn't like me too much because I would do things in a way to get stuff done, and they would want me to do it in a way that would make them money. So I kind of had a different. I had a different thing. Which
But
in
if you
turn,
were in that dirty kitchen, would you?
I wouldn't work in a place like that.
You just wouldn't work there. All right.
Yeah, I've
Copy.
worked in places like that, and I have left places like that.
Just because you couldn't do it. Okay.
You're gonna be there 8 hours a day, like 4 days a
See
week.
again, but you're okay. So you're someone who's very successful for your age in Hollywood and is going to be successful, far more successful in life probably than me. See, that's the mentality. You have that mentality. By the way, you don't have a problem with authority. You've just worked with mediocre people, Stephen. Because believe me, and as you well know here, right, the three of us know better. We know people who have problems with authority, right? And with 200 or 300 hosts, we know the ones, and you know people I'm talking about as I'm looking right at you. So, and you are not one of them. So, but thank you for weighing in. For me, I wouldn't have had the wherewithal to quit. That's really astute of you to say this is just a mess. I'm like, well, I need the job. I don't want to quit. They hired me, so I'd try to go in and fix it. But but I guess the rest of the world, it's just they have to be led, and they're not being. And every week we see them not being led. But I also
I disagree with that.
Okay, go ahead, please.
The reason I disagree with that is because I have worked with people who were in a situation, or I've had friends who are in a situation where they are in a workplace that's not clean. They are in that. And when they try to establish ways to make it that way and try to make it clean, and management does not back them up, it's basically fighting a losing fight. And they're stuck in a place where they're
that's
trying everything they can.
That's tragic, and that's tragic. My God, that is tragic. And there are
Worse is when they trip them. Like, what are you doing? I'm just because we've seen that too. That's the ultimate. Like, I'm just trying to make the place clean. Oh, well, you're a smart ass now?
Yeah, or
it's not clean enough for you?
You do that on your time. I got to make money.
Yeah.
Yeah, because those are bottom line people who just want money in their hand, and they're just all playing a short game. Man, though, this was every week we say this is one of the worst bars, but it seemed like one of the worst bars for cleanliness.
It was really terrible, and in terms of the getting slammed with the 60 people, the strategy of okay, well we got these people, let's get drinks out. Why don't we just give them away for free?
God, I could have killed her.
Well, this is why John's such a great coach. You guys, is the stuff you liked in her, Phil, which is the sassiness, the attitude, to match with the good looks. That typically is what a great bartender could be. Those are elements to what the great bartenders are that makes the regulars come in, flirt with her, laugh with her, So what John ends up doing is saying, okay, I've got this natural capacity in this girl. But how do I get her to use that for the positive? Right now, she's just being a brat with it. Can I go? I gotta go have a cigarette. Remember, it was like,
oh yeah, in the interview.
I mean, she was awful. And we'll talk about next phases with her. Also, though, black mold, you guys? Did you see? The black mold is deadly. I mean, houses get knocked down for black mold.
Stachi Batras is, yeah.
I mean, no, I'm telling you guys, as someone who's bought and sold houses, like, you have black mold, you're screwed. You've got to bring it down to the skeleton, if not knock the house down. That's how deadly black mold is. Not to mention the rats and everything else. But let's talk about the chef. The two of them, like when he was immediately in that, I don't need this and blah, blah, blah. And, his walk out, it was like, God, I just looked at him like that. I get discouraged. I'm like, that's America. Just right now. Just arrogant. Can't be told what to do. Their way or the highway. Always have to win, even if they're wrong. But, because John, whatever the case is, they came back, right?
They came back, and he had a good line with the chef. He said, how do I know you're not gonna leave? Well, all I have is my word. And he said, well, you better start working, because that's it. So, I thought he handled that really well. And pretty much, we go from stress test of 60 people to the next day. We get some training in there.
Quick stuff.
But we basically double capacity at 120. So, we got some strategies and whatever else. And basically, it's more of a don't give drinks away for free. Let's try to do this.
She gave him away in the recon, right? Or was it the first night?
Well, that's part of the recon.
No, but the first night he walked in. I'm looking at this, almost was 2 recons in the show, right?
Yeah,
it was a 60. Did she give him away at the 60?
Yeah, the 60.
Gotcha. And the next time,
the 120, the goal
he
was
broke
to
her,
not
and
give.
Yeah, and he got her there, and he found a way to get her to do all that sassiness, that energy, that angst, and he used it he got it going in a positive way where I could see her, like, she'd be a great bartender.
But even at the beginning, I mean, you're absolutely right. But even in the beginning, when the expert mixologist, he was saying, come on, you got to pick up the pace. She was like, good, terrific. Just that sarcasm. Very early on, she turned the corner.
But they got her there,
yeah.
And it was nice. It was so nice to see. For her to come around. But, man, that attitude. I mean, by the way, I'm loving the attitude. Everyone keep being honest. It's making really good television. Please don't change. But it's still frustrating to watch.
Yeah.
It's.
But I don't think you can, the nice part about it is you can't help but be honest. Even if you could put on a face for so long, but after three days, the mask falls off.
If I was getting yelled at for 2 straight days, I would snap. I'm stupid Italian. I would definitely snap and then come back and say sorry. But yeah, okay, you're right. Which probably takes us to that's the scene that I'm.
Yeah, the biggest scene. So that kind of night, he takes Jamie aside. He said, let's talk, because a lot of this is you. And
he knew Jamie's the alpha male.
Yeah.
You could tell the other guy was the beta in the relationship.
Very much so. And so, this was the scene. This wasn't the scene, but it was the scene that it looked like John found out this information for perhaps the first time. Or he might have known, but he needed to hear it from Jamie himself about why it is that this is going on.
And as I'm watching this, I'm saying to myself, Dorinda must be bawling her eyes out.
That was a tough, because the next day, he comes in, he says, like, listen, we have to talk about this. And it's him and John were not in a good position, and it's just because they've never talked. And I don't understand why, because especially when they're so succinct, it would just make the most sense of, like, okay, let's have an honest dialogue about this, because clearly John lost a son too.
Well, yes, but the alpha was so hurting Phil that he withdrew. And, the more he was reacting to people, more poor decisions he was making, the more he was pushing people away. And the beta guy probably didn't have the wherewithal to grab him by both shoulders and say, listen, we all experience this loss. And now this loss, we're all being pulled into this grave, which is what your son would never want. But that would take someone more than, I think, than the co-owner. Mm-hmm. But for me, that scene, I cried like a baby. It was so emotional to watch this poor guy. And, you see John also reacting, crying. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, Phil, that's what I meant by now let Mark Cuban sit there and not John from Shark Tank. Let Kevin O'Leary is his name.
Oh, Kevin would never.
Well, let him say. He might surprise you. He might be the one, Phil, that would be the one. He might
Maybe.
surprise you. The computer guy, maybe.
Robert
I think would be
Hershey.
sweet, but I think he'd be sweet, but he wouldn't know what to say. I mean, you have to first be that compassionate, and then second, you need to be able to offer those solutions. And that's what I mean, is John can go sit with the Sharks and do their job, but they can't come do his. And that's why John Taffer is so special, because he not only was there, there's a side of John that's still a common man, you know, and for him to sit there and totally understand that pain and to cry with the guy, but then to say, to find a way to reach him emotionally and get him, God, I'm emotionally even thinking about it, but get him to kind of see the light and to let the pain go and to bring the other guy in. It's just so special. And that's why, again, like, unbelievable episode. You know, last week was last week, and that's the zaniness and the craziness, and this week was this. It was beautiful. And when I saw that 2 weeks ago, you and I were having this discussion about the John Taffer and Shark Tank and those experts, and my problem with those guys is a lot of them are good at poking holes, but I'd love to see them actually have to go and create a solution. I actually think they'd be good at it. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm just saying they're not John. Mm-hmm. John's very special. So I improved it in that scene. It was something. And John always finds a way to find out the core of the problem. You notice that? Remember the guy that was obsessed with he'd lost his father and he let the father down, and so he put a picture of the father up in the bar to remind him. I mean, it's like he always finds that one thing to get on the common ground, with the exception of Pirates. You know, he finds that one thing to reach people.
He, even with the Pirates, he found the core problem. It's just they have to be willing to accept it.
No, but even after the show, he figured out how to go and even get through to her, and he said, we have to bring in the world's biggest pirate. He said, whoever's the world's most famous pirate from these pirate organizations, I've got to get him to come in, or him or her to come in with me to reach this lady, because that's how hard it was for each. But it's just, yeah, very special. It was a wonderful scene and a wonderful moment, and yeah, they could hopefully, by purging that, you know, they're hopefully able to move forward and be successful. Now, I mean, the renovation was amazing. I thought
Pirate Bar.
And I love that he made a reference to it.
I never thought I'd make a pirate bar, but I made a pirate bar.
Yeah, and a female pirate bar, and which I think would empower the bartenders, and
it's still tied back to John and Jamie.
And you're on the corner. You know, again, it makes perfect sense. That area of Florida, famous for pirates.
Well, not only that, that's
where they landed.
Yeah,
the women. Yeah, it was a no-brainer. I love the big drinks, the big straws, just fun. You know,
the tropical drinks were fantastic.
Because I think when you have that location right on the beach, I think you almost have to become more than a local bar. If you're going to be a local bar, then I think you'd be a few blocks off the beach. But if you're on the beach, like they are, you got to be more for tourists that are in there, that can pop in there, have a few cold ones.
Yeah, and you gotta make it memorable, right?
Yeah.
You go back to the New Orleans thing. They had their own kind of jugs as well.
Yeah,
So you had the similar thing here, and you just make it memorable.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was a great idea. Perfect. I loved the paint. I loved the interior. I don't know. He really set them up to succeed, and from what we understand, they're still in business. They've kept the name. Yelp reviews were, when I looked, were mixed, but we've always gotten that.
Yeah.
We've always gotten that, like literally 100% of the time. But yeah, that was wonderful. I did. I mean, what'd you think of the renovation?
I absolutely loved it, and I never thought we'd see a pirate bar.
Great, this show's so amazing. My God, this is
amazing.
And
the shirts were great too, because you had the front with the name, and then you had kind of I forget what it was 100%, like whether it was a map or a compass, more of a thing.
Great.
But you had the front and the back, which I'm a big fan of.
Yep. Yeah, we just did that we had a promotion for AfterBuzz on E. and you did that. And by the way, Phil, everyone complimented on those shirts.
Nobody
you picked
believed me, but I came through.
Yeah, you were smart. You did a great job. Yeah, I don't know. I love this, and yeah, it's the only AfterBuzz show I do right now. And that's why.
Well, I like that it rewarded otherwise successful people. That just hit, or
Yeah,
Not-
it is nice when it's just people who are deserving.
Yeah.
So.
So overall, really good episode. We certainly enjoyed it.
I'm surprised Dorinda's. I mean, Dorinda, I'm sure bawled. She'll tell us next week.
Absolutely.
I'm sure Mia got misty too, but I know Dorinda. She gets really emotional like me, but I just couldn't help it. I thought it was beautiful. It really was. So anyway, all right, I'll cut to it. I'm at Undergaro, Instagram, Twitter, and a lot of people tweet at me, which is nice about bar rescues. So I forget who it was, and I wish I had my phone in front of me, but they were like, John did another pirate. Like,
oh, and this was the first time we've seen the use of his Bar HQ app.
Oh, that's right.
As part of the episode.
That's
so we've been talking about it, but we've never seen an actual episode. So that was great to see.
And they seemed excited too
Yeah.
to receive it. And it's, I think if you're, just to throw it out there, so it must be active. If you're a bar, because he's told me about it before, but if you're a bar owner, it's a great way to schedule your staff, and then just all these other amazing features on this one app that it seems like every bar owner has to have. And in fact, a friend of mine in Boston who owns one of the bigger bars there is now using it and just raving. Raving about it.
Well,
And,
it's
and
made by someone who's done it.
well, typical Boston guy is like, okay, so you know him, so I need to meet him. I'm like, yeah, no, I've interviewed him like once or twice. I don't know, leave me alone. But anyway, he was raving about, he said the app is unbelievable.
Absolutely. And Raise the Bar is the book. And, of course, so much stuff from him down the line to look forward to. But, yeah, definitely download the app. Raise the Bar, and at John Taffer, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff.
Nice.
And, of course, here at AfterBuzz TV, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram as well. We'll see you next time for another Bar Rescue After Show.
And send some comments to iTunes and YouTube.
That's right.
We didn't do a shout-out. Okay.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.